Why take FPL advice from one expert when you can take advice from 100 of them? Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and today the experts are going to help us out with our transfer moves and perhaps more importantly, that difficult question on who to captain in Game Week 13. Let's get going. So once again, a massive shout out to the 100 FPL managers who helped us out with their data this week, providing their moves, their transfer tips, their wildcard and chip strategies and captains as well, as we mentioned. Big shout out to these guys. If you do see them anywhere, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, do go check them out. Let's see exactly what they are doing this week. So just to give an overview, it seems like it is once again a week to be making transfers, as we do see 40% of our experts today making one transfer for Game Week 13, and two transfers, well, we have 30% making those double switches. We're seeing a lot more double transfer moves from our experts this season, it has to be said. The transfer rolling strategy for the new rule is definitely something that is impacting things at the moment, but also we have seen an increase in hits being taken by our experts, so feel free to take a hit, particularly if it's going to be making some really key double transfers, which we will be covering later in the video. 3% are making 3 or more transfers, 2 are making 3 transfers, 1 is making 4 transfers. So we have got a few people making those big moves, but not quite as much as we saw last week. Just one person on a wild card, so I'm not sure it's a wild card week necessarily, but 26% are choosing to roll, and that may be impacted by the large amount of experts who wild carded last week. A lot of wild carders in Game Week 12 will be choosing to roll their transfer in Game Week 13. But what exactly are they doing? Well, let's go through some stuff. So first of all, we do need to have a look at the global top picks. These are the players that the overall player base seem to be very, very keen on, to see if we can identify any hype picks that actually our experts are not really too keen on. But in fairness, the top transfers here, Cunha, João Pedro, Saka and Salah, who everyone seems to be enjoying, well, the experts agree these are great players to bring into your FPL team for Game Week 13. We also have Palmer with a few transfers in for him as well. If you are missing Palmer, he could be one to consider bringing into your team. Interestingly, Palmer is very high in ownership among the overall FPL expert player base here, really. We've got a few transfers in for Jackson and a few in for Aït-Nouri, but nothing too significant. However, there are 3 players on this list who are seeing no interest from experts whatsoever. 2 of those players are Spurs players, Pedro Porro and Maddison. I think a lot of our experts are thinking that their high scores in Game Week 12 were a flash in the pan, an anomaly, and maybe they are looking to stray away from those knee-jerk transfers on those Spurs players. So no interest in either of those. They're not even highly owned players among experts either. These are players that the experts don't own and the experts aren't interested in either, which can't be said about Gabriel. He has a very high expert ownership, so therefore we're not seeing any transfers in for him, but a lot of people own him anyway, so that's kind of the reason why we're not seeing too many transfers in for him. We will be having a look at the template later, don't you worry about that. But with that data out the way, let's start having a look at the actual transfers being made by those experts, so we can make some suggestions that are going to help you out. So first of all, we've got to look at the transfers out, and yeah, the big man is on top of this list once again for the second week in a row. We see Haaland as the highest volume of transfers out among the top managers. 22 transfers out. That is out of a sample size of 73 transfer making experts for Game Week 13. So if you do still have him, you are probably going to be looking at removing him after Man City's form just seems to be getting worse and worse. Yes, they did see Haaland score twice in the Champions League game against Feyenoord, but one was a penalty, so I don't know how much we take that into consideration, particularly as Haaland does face Liverpool away in Game Week 13. So this is the worst fixture of the season for Haaland, really. Maybe Arsenal away would be similar in terms of difficulty, difficulty, but if you are jumping off Haaland, this is a very, very good moment to do it if you do still have him in your team. Even for a -4, might be worth doing if you are missing some of those other key FPL assets for Game Week 13. Raul Jimenez also seeing a lot of transfers out, 15 transfers out for him. So if you are a Raul owner, even though he is facing this Spurs team with some missing players in the defensive areas, it might be worth selling him in order to get some of the big cheap forwards that everyone is talking about this week. 14 transfers out for the suspended Semenyo here. That is pretty significant actually in terms of Semenyo's ownership among experts, and Semenyo is quickly dropping out of the expert template due to that suspension. So definitely a player you might consider selling, replacing, particularly if you don't have any cover for him in your squad. Maybe Rodgers is part of that cover, but he faces Chelsea next, which is not an ideal fixture away from home. 5 of our experts will be transferring him out as well. And completing the list, we see players like Bruno Fernandes, few experts giving up on him, Lewis, Smith Rowe, Wood, and Burmo and Solanke also on this list. So the big trend among the experts for transfers out is selling attacking players, selling forwards and selling midfielders. Only Lewis is seeing any significant trend for transfers out among defenders this week. And even so, Lewis is owned by around a third of my expert sample size. So 4 transfers out, that is a small percentage of the Lewis owners. So really, we want to look at making attacking transfers. Defensive transfers, really not likely to gain you many points, particularly this season, as there's no real high-scoring defenders that we see week to week. It is the midfielders and the forwards who are scoring big, and those are the kind of transfers that can really, really boost your score in Game Week 13. So that is the big trend of the week. Focus your transfers on attacking players rather than defensive players, and hopefully you can make some big gains in Game Week 13. But where are you going to get those gains? Which players are you going to bring in? Well, before I tell you, please make sure you do like the video before we move on to the next section. It really does help out the channel so much. And if you do want to catch up with the expert moves every single week to try and guarantee yourself at top rank, then make sure you're subscribed as well. The experts are doing better and better every week, and you don't want to miss a video. So it's time for those trends for the transfers in, and we do see one player to rule them all in Game Week 13, and that is João Pedro, the Brazilian mastermind in that Brighton attack, looking brilliant right now in scintillating form since returning from injury. Just 5.6 million, which is the bargain of the century, and guess what? He faces Southampton at home next, possibly the best fixture of the season for him. So no surprise, everything is working in Pedro's favour, and therefore our experts are loving this move. 31 transfers in for him is no joke, a significant increase from ownership from last game week. But there are a few other players with a big interest. 2 other players are going to be your main transfer targets this week if you want to follow along with the expert trends. And they are Saka with 26 transfers in, again a very significant number there. A lot of experts jumping on Saka ahead of his fixture against West Ham, and Cunha is in here as well. Now, some people may have expected to see Cunha a little bit higher on this list. Obviously, Cunha is very popular in the overall FPL player base, but a lot of our experts do own him already, but it does still seem that João Pedro is the priority transfer this week. Among experts, if you can only bring in one this week, you will probably go for João Pedro over Cunha. And maybe if you have one or both of these guys already, or you don't really have a forward you're willing to sell for João Pedro or Cunha, maybe Saka is going to be your answer. These are the big 3. In terms of those other picks you might want to pick up this week, Timber, 5 transfers in for him. He is the defender of the week. If you're looking to get a new defender, Timber is going to be your guy. Palmer and Salah seeing a few transfers in for them. For those experts who are still missing these players from their squads, Ait-Nouri, Isak, Mitoma and Jackson complete the list. But not as many transfers in for Jackson as maybe you expected, just the 3. So with that all said, we can make some suggestions on who you should be using your transfers on this week. What moves can we do? But wait, before we do that, I just want to review the template. And first of all, guys, the average Game Week 12 score for our experts was 65.8 points. Let me know in the comment section, did you outscore the experts this week or not? Did you get more than 65, 66 points? If so, brilliant. You're doing really, really well, particularly in Game Week 12. In terms of that average current rank for our experts, it has jumped up again. The mean rank is now up to 450k. So that has jumped up around 100,000 places. So the experts are moving up at around 50 to 100,000 places on average every single game week, and soon we will see this number get closer to that golden 100,000 number, which will be really nice to see. But these things take time, so have some patience with the experts. Let's see how they are getting on by the new year. In terms of the median rank, it has dropped a couple of thousand places, so it seems like those towards the bottom of the experts table have jumped up, and maybe those at the top have kind of consolidated and stayed around the same place. That's kind of what I've kind of ascertained from this data. And it could be that a lot of the lower ranked experts have just used their wildcard and are now starting to play catch up, bringing that mean up a little bit. So really nice, still really impressive stuff from the experts. And I'm looking forward to seeing what gains they can make in Game Week 13, because it looks to be a really big game week. In terms of those template trends, no change on the goalkeepers this week, very little change on the defensive kind of template. Still, Aït-Nouri, Gabriel, Greaves, Lewis and Hall seem to be the experts template defense that we're seeing a lot of right now. We're going to see Timber creep into this template as well a little bit, I think. In terms of those midfielders, Salah is now up to 96% owned among experts, so he is crazy high right now. Palmer also up to 94%. So these players are pretty much essential to have in your team. These are players that our experts consider must-have FPL assets. Another slight drop from Burmo down to 83%. A couple of weeks ago, he was over 90, but he seems to be dropping each and every week. I think he's going to drop even more in Game Week 14, but we'll save that for next week. Rodgers, small drop for him, down to 65%, and Saka is the latest addition to the midfield template. A jump of from 22% all the way up to 48% selected, approximately, by our experts. So around half of the top managers will have Saka in Game Week 13, which doesn't necessarily make him a must-have, but is definitely someone to consider. In terms of those forwards, another jump up for Cunha. He's now up to 84%. Is that essential territory? It's getting towards that. Haaland with a huge drop-off. Now only 16% of our experts will have Haaland in their team. And João Pedro, a huge jump for him. A new addition to the template. He is now up to 55% selected among our experts. So that is your template. Hopefully you've got a lot of these players in here already. But if you haven't, what can we do about it? Well, as I mentioned, João Pedro seems to be the priority move this week because of the superior fixture for him versus Cunha. So Haaland and Semenyo out, Haaland not performing, Semenyo suspended. For João Pedro and Saka could be really nice. Now, I should mention at this point that Saka is only the kind of premium midfielder to bring in if you already have Salah and Palmer. If you don't have Salah or Palmer, then he is one of them are probably the guys to go for instead of Saka. Saka can maybe wait a couple more weeks, but Salah and Palmer really are your priority guys. But yes, if you have Palmer, if you have Salah, Haaland, Semenyo, João Pedro, Saka works really nicely. If you already have João Pedro or you just prefer Cunha, you could maybe take Cunha instead of João Pedro. And another way of doing this would be to sell Rodgers instead of Semenyo if maybe you don't have Semenyo or you want to hold on to him ready for when his suspension is over in Game Week 14. So those are the kind of combo transfers we would be looking at making this week, and these are very popular moves among the experts too. In terms of those more direct transfers, if you're just looking to make one move this week, you could consider not taking a -4 and just moving Haaland straight to João Pedro or Cunha. Ordinarily, we probably wouldn't recommend a move like this, but because of the difficulty of Haaland's fixture this week, you actually probably fancy João Pedro and Cunha to outscore Haaland by enough that it's worth making that direct transfer this week. And maybe in game week 14, you can use that money you freed up to reinvest in another player. Bruno Fernandes or Mbeumo to Saka may work well for you if you have a little bit of money in the bank to make that upgrade. And if you just want to make one transfer, you just want to remove Semenyo, we have seen a few of our experts making a direct Semenyo to Mitoma move. So he's looking like the best direct replacement for Semenyo. But again, that is going to require a little bit of money in the bank. And of course, as we mentioned, Lewis, the only real defender being sold en masse, and Timber looks to be the replacement. So if you can afford to make that upgrade, definitely something to consider ahead of this week for Timber against West Ham. And with all that said, guys, we now need to have a look and see who is the best captain for game week 13. And actually, we really do have an answer. We thought it would be close. We thought there'd be loads of options, but our experts have kind of agreed on a specific player. And that is going to be Salah. Man City are in such poor form at the moment, particularly defensive form, that picking an informed Salah, playing at home, playing at Anfield against this current Man City side actually seems like a really good idea at the moment. Man City are one of the worst defenses in the league on current form. So 58% of our experts are not messing about. They are not going differential. They have agreed Salah is your captain this week. So if you were struggling with a decision, then maybe that's your answer. Mo Salah against Man City. But that's not the only option. There is a variety of different players, but the only other player with a significant trend among experts for captaincy is Cole Palmer at home against Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa are putting up good defensive numbers, but unfortunately, they are just conceding a lot of goals. And Palmer, hoping to get back into some form, is going to be playing Villa up next. 24% of our experts will be captaining Palmer in game week 13. So definitely an alternative option if you don't fancy going for Salah. I think Salah and Palmer are our two obvious guys. Outside of that, we have such a big spread. 4% on Cunha against Bournemouth, 4% on João Pedro against Southampton, 4% on Mbeumo against Leicester, 3% on Saka against West Ham, and we've got 3 1%ers this week. Bruno Fernandes against Everton, Wissa against Leicester, and the one that wouldn't fit on the screen is Wood against Ipswich this week as well. So lots of differential captains being picked this week, but at the same time, we have much stronger trends than I expected this week, and therefore that gives me more confidence that Salah is probably the guy to go for. Palmer at a push. Anyone outside of that, you are probably taking a little bit of a risk. In fairness, when we see weeks like this, where we don't see a 70, 80, 90% selected captain, these are the kind of weeks where it's more worthwhile taking a risk because you're not playing up against it so much. Salah, if you own him at least, is not going to destroy your rank if you don't captain him this week. This week in particular, because 58% is high, but it's nothing crazy. So it is definitely an opportunity, a chance to go a little bit different if you really wanted to. But if you just want to play it safe, you just want to be sensible, you've got 2 clear captain favourites right here on your screen for you guys. So there we go, guys. That is the captain stats for today. If you have any other questions related to what the experts are up to this week, feel free to leave a comment and ask me anything about the expert data and how we can help you a little bit more. If you have any further suggestions for this series, do let me know. We're always looking to improve the videos. But aside from that, thank you so much for watching. Please do drop a like before you go. Check out another video if you want, and also subscribe. I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.